What a decade! So many phenomenal horror films, so little time. The beginning of our 10-year stint seems just so far back now, doesn't it? The pervasive trend of calling things elevated horror didn't even exist back when we entered the 20 double digits. Lots of the stuff that defined the earlier half of the decade can't seem to keep the good times going, while others have transformed into gigantic money-making franchises. And the general styles have been quite varied throughout our last 10 trips around the sun too. From dead serious period pieces to hyper-stylized 80s revivals, we got to see the whole lot of creative and terrifying horror movies. Not all of it was super scary though. There was plenty of genre-bending offerings that took horror in all sorts of new directions. So if your favorite horror comedy didn't make the cut, please understand. Also, before I start in on this list, I want to make it crystal clear that it is very difficult to select just 5 movies from a top-notch pool of around 50 by my estimation. Also, I'm going to do my best to spread the wealth and allow a bunch of differently styled horror movies to take a spot each. I like variety, so we're going to pick some that have ghosts, some that have demons, some that have slashers, and some that have cosmic entities. Even if the top 5 scariest were all slashers, I'm going to make sure to choose one pure slasher and then move on to the next thing. Anyways, I'll piss some people off in the comments regardless of the disclaimers I give, so let's move right along. Hello horror heads and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're counting down the top 5 scariest horror movies of the decade you need to watch. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more spooky decade summaries. Fantastic. Let's get going. Starting us off at number 5, we've got The Conjuring. This 2013 based on a true story ghost story is one that absolutely defined the decade. It pushed James Wan into the spotlight, reinvigorated the haunted house horror, and launched a multi-billion-dollar franchise that hasn't quite recaptured the initial spirit of spookiness yet. You can ask anyone if they know what The Conjuring is, and they will say yes. Okay, almost everyone, Great Aunt Marge doesn't count. It didn't become popular for no reason. It had a very strong start. Scares for days, and not just silly jumpy ones. Plus, it's all based on real-life accounts of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Who doesn't love seeing based on a true story in horror? We take a look at the lovely Perron family as they move into their Rhode Island farmhouse. Paranormal events start up almost immediately, freaking the ever-loving hell out of Roger, Carolyn, and their 5 daughters. The ghostly ghoulies torment the family as they go about their lives, resulting in the iconic hide and clap sequence. What follows is a pretty classic exorcism story, but with enough fresh energy to keep it going without feeling like a lazy rehash. In fact, it all feels pretty new. Somehow Wan manages to squeeze every last ounce of terror out of what should be tired genre tropes. It was so effective that the next 7 years of the decade would see plenty of clones that pale in comparison. Annabelle, The Nun, Poltergeist, and more. None could recreate the same terror and suspense elicited by The Conjuring. We probably won't get another ghost movie like this until somebody flips the script again, well into the next decade. And one more time. Coming in at number 4, Annihilation. Cosmic horror is very difficult to pull off in movies. The element that often makes cosmic horror so terrifying, your own imagination, is sort of turned down when you put images on screen. If you can see it, your brain doesn't need to imagine it anymore. It knows that it's there. So when I heard they were putting together a movie based on Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, I was skeptical at best. The books are extremely creepy and atmospheric largely because of their restraint, and I wasn't sure if it would translate well into a feature film. Thankfully, my predictions were off. This is one hell of a movie. Good work to Alex Garland and company. We enter The Shimmer with a group of heavily armed scientists as they attempt to figure out exactly what the hell is going on in this meteor-ravaged zone. Nobody could have predicted what they would find, but it sure wasn't what they ended up stumbling upon. Mutated fleshy chimeras populate the lush overgrown jungle, leading to some incredible creature moments. If you know about the bear, you also have decided to never leave your house again. Skillfully combining sci-fi and thriller elements with plenty of horror to boot, this is a visually stunning, upsetting, and unsettling treat. Plus, it features a lighthouse as a point of interest, which will always bump up a horror movie just a couple notches. It works, okay? Now, the mutant beasts aren't the only strange threats within the shimmering walls, and a fantastic mix of not knowing, not remembering, and not understanding plague the protagonists as they come closer and closer to an answer. Top all this off with a stellar soundtrack, and you have one of the coolest and freakiest cosmic horrors of the decade. I love the noise. The Annihilation noise, you know the one. Filling out our number 3 spot, It Follows. More scary demons and excellent music? music? Yes, please. On the surface, the premise of It Follows can seem a little silly. I've heard countless people laugh it off as the STD demon movie, but if you're gonna immediately discount a horror movie for having an odd presence, you don't deserve to call yourself a horror fan. David Robert Mitchell pulls this off with aplomb. Highly stylized while still being beautifully creepy at times, horror directors wish they could do something half as wicked as this. It bounces back and forth between peaceful idyllic suburbia and blood-chilling stomach-turning panic without missing a beat. The story follows Jay, a teenage girl who's dating a lad with a terrible secret. After sleeping together, the fellow reveals that she will now be pursued by an entity that can take on the form of any human being, and if she's ever caught, it will kill her and then chase after him. Forevermore, she will have to look over her shoulder, wherever she is, and never quite be sure if any one person's the demon or not. The movie oozes creeping panic, paranoia, and fear. The camera's always inching in, closer and closer and closer, mimicking the movements of the creature. There's no escape, there's no killing it, and it will always follow. The first scene alone is enough to hook anyone. If you're not sold on this movie, go and watch the first scene right now. You will not be disappointed. Again, the music really helps sell the whole experience. This is a beautiful, nefarious score by Disasterpiece, and it can switch from sparkling to grimy in a matter of seconds, lulling you into a sense of security before twisting the knife right into your gut. Gorgeous and ghastly, this is a horror gem for the ages. Coming in at number 2, we've got Green Room. Now on the other end of the horror spectrum, we have Green Room, an adrenaline-fueled punch to the nose of a horror movie. This is bloody, grimy, and mean-spirited. And why wouldn't it be? It's about punk rockers antagonizing the patrons of a Nazi bar. The story follows a band known as the Ain't Rights as they travel the Pacific Northwest, playing shows and living off the cover money. After one show cancels, they make arrangements to go and play at a neo-Nazi skinhead bar in the woods. From the moment they play the classic Dead Kennedys tune, Nazi punks off, you know they're in for a rough ride. Soon they accidentally stumble across a dead body and all hell breaks loose, like serious throat-ripping, gang-stabbing hell. Director Jeremy Saulnier is not known for pulling any punches, and boy does he ever let it rip here. Claustrophobic, angry, and fast-paced, Green Room doesn't let up, and it doesn't shy away from some of the nastiest injuries set to film this decade. An arm is snapped by a heavy metal door and subsequently wrapped up in duct tape. Someone's throat is ripped out by an attack dog, and Patrick Stewart provides heroin to a murderous lunatic. It's all wonderful stuff, and it all takes place basically inside the one bar. It's a wild ride that has to be seen to be believed, and I could honestly watch this on loop forever, never get bored. Also, rest in peace, Anton Yelchin. And finally at number 1, Tera Fire. This is the #1 scariest movie for a whole plethora of reasons. Killer clowns have never been this maniacal. Art the Clown will definitely go down in the Horror Hall of Fame. His biggest world record? Most appearances on dirty t-shirts since 2016. There's a big enough body count with enough gore to fill at least 2 tractor trailers. There's absolutely zero story, just a bloodthirsty villain with a lot of time on his hands. And there's this weird hard-on for extreme violence against women. And I'll let you guys decide whether that's just homage or something else entirely. There's that one bit when he acts like a baby and sucks his thumb before wearing the woman who tried to help him like a vest. Oof. There's also the connection to All Hallows Eve where it's implied that he can travel through videotapes like The Ring. This is a horror movie that is purely horror. No cross-genre action, no modern sentiments, just blood, guts, and a man who loves to tear him out of people. You have to respect the single-mindedness of it. Art's design is particularly grisly. Director/writer/special effects artist Damien Leone has somehow managed to make the killer clown image more repulsive than ever. Maybe it's the black makeup lining all of his orifices, but there's something especially unsettling about this clown. The inescapability of his wrath is scary too. He goes after people with no motivation and kills anyone in his path. Other horror movies might try to explain it via backstory, but not Tera Fire. Art is just a vehicle for the delivery of brutal, gruesome death. Man, those were some wicked movies. Wicked cool and wicked wicked. Thank goodness for the ever-expanding library of terror. What movies do you think topped the decade? There's a lot to discuss, and 5 is nowhere near enough, but let me know in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's have a look at some of your more blood-spattered ones from last time. Destiny Chester says, I simply love this channel even though it scared me when I first watched it. And we simply love you, Destiny, even though you scared us when you first started watching. Yes, we're always watching our viewers. Dallas Costine says, when are you gonna add SCP-682? We've actually covered 682 pretty extensively on the channel in the past. You just gotta dig up some of the SCP videos from earlier in 2019. I feel like most people are pretty familiar with it at this point, and I want to bring some new ones to light. Moon Knight 8 says, I love Keegan. He seems like a cool guy to speak with. I mean, Keegan's alright, but I hear Moon Knight has all sorts of interesting stuff to say. Kirk Buffington asks, Keegan, do you listen to metal? Sometimes. I feel like there's at least one metal band for everyone. I kinda drift towards weird punk stuff more though, like Idols or Show Me the Body. Patrick Rutland asks, SCP? What does that mean? Stands for Super Cool People, which is everyone watching this video. And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.